My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Sivasankaran, Guru Piranyo, fellow Jnanis. Today I'm going to continue Mahan's third principle, but I'll just run through a quick recap of what we covered. And today I'll go a little bit more deeper on some of Mahan's concept on sound. So again, I spoke about what sound is, sound, we talked about how the sound, is a diffusion of, thought and energy and pulsation, and it's linked to principle one, the I. So sound is, a manifestation of, the I, as Swamiji spoke about, and it's a diffusion of the I. So thought here is a diffusion of the I, and we also see that a pulsation of I is actually energy, and I spoke about that. That's what principle 3 is. So pulsation of I is energy, just to recap for many of you. So that links between principle 1, 2, and 3. And everything in this universe, is part and parcel of, has this, sound and vibration. Without vibration, the universe does not exist. And so every particle, everything in this universe is part and parcel of that vibration. So here Swamiji talks about every religious teachings and, prayers and worship all speak about nothing but that inner sound. And you probably would have heard all kinds of names for that sound, and sound of silence, Om, and a whole range of other things. Swamiji calls it the Unarve. So again, we covered that everything in this universe originated from an atom, and the nectar of life, everything that is written in the scriptures about birth, sustenance and dissolution of life, everything starts with that, vibration. And then Swamiji goes on to say that given everything is, that vibration, and sometimes we don't understand this, and we pray and pray without understanding. But if you understood prayer, it is not external, it is internal. Because if everything in this universe is part and parcel of this, primordial, supreme, divine, substratum, then it must be part and parcel of us, because we are, we manifest from that. So, and the search is not outside, the search is within us. And this is where meditation, introspection, contemplation in itself is a prayer, right? And so Swamiji says, when you shift from outside to inside, you would be able to discover that sound. When you discover the sound, you'll see that everything outside is an emanating and a manifestation of that inner sound. So again, we spoke about, the different aspects of this sound, so here Swamiji speaks about that inner sound that one should really understand, the symphony or the vibration within us. This knowledge is what the true knowledge of, this vibration. So Swamiji speaks about, how this vibration is resonating in us 24 hours, even when we are sleeping. Only thing is, in sleep, none of the, sensory faculties are awake. But nevertheless, the body emanates, in that supreme vibration. So again, one who really intensively, somewhat like a penance, focused, not be distracted, will, be able to have that sharp intellect and jnana to be able to decipher that sound and understand that sound. So again, Swamiji speaks about how when you understand the sound within you, everything is melodious, whether it's reading, singing, the joyful feeling that one gets. And that comes from that gentle, quiet, melodious vibration. That is what Swamiji calls Summa Irukum Sugam. That which is omnipresent in us. You don't have to search for it anywhere outside. You can't find it outside. It's all within ourselves. And This is where he says that when you are able to acquire that knowledge, he says, hear my words with your heart. That means here, you say, hear my words, this divine vibration that, I'm speaking about, that is part of you. If you hear that very carefully and you listen to that vibration, you'll become very courageous. He says that if you bring that vibration to your forehead, you will conquer, the fear of death. So you have an understanding of birth, death, sustenance. They're all ephemeral and transitory. That there's a part of you that does not get born, nor does it die. And in that, you say, I am that. And you see that you're able to overcome death, disease, poverty, ridicule, all kinds of things that impacts one's emotional state of existence. He says that when you, bring that vibration to the top, you see that you'll shine with intelligence. Your mind becomes more quieter, a sense of clarity is there. The sense of clarity, that jnana expands. And he says that, when one acquires that, you know yourself and you see that all the things that you do, think, what you think, what you speak, or your actions all are, converge to that search for that truth. It is no more chasing that illusionary, divine substratum. Once you acquire it, you see that everything, once the mind is anchored on that inner divine substratum or the vibration, the mind emanates that vibration and it, cognizes that vibration in every facet of one's life. So again, that symphony or the harmony is there. So I want to then now go a little bit more deeper. That's what I covered the last time. And here Swamiji goes much more deeper, right? And this is something that, I want to spend a little bit more time. He says the sound, the unlettered, is the cause and end of all music, vocal, instrument, and for all the pleasures derived therefrom. This is really important. When he says the sound that is unlettered, that means there's no words to describe it. There is no sound to describe it. It is an experience, right? And he says that this sound, this vibration, this rhythm, this symphony has got no, you can't write it in words. Like you say, this is, Beethoven's something, right? So, this is what the symphony is. But here you can't, there's no words to describe it. Even Om has a word and you know what it means. But here, this is indescribable. There is no words to describe this vibration. It's an experience. You see, so this is what he's saying, that this sound of silence or the sound of this unarvu that Swamiji talks about, and everything that it manifests as, vocal, instruments, pleasure, everything. Prior to all this, there is a sense of sublimity, a sense of serenity. There is a sense of quietude. Sometimes you hear people saying the sound of silence, right? And there is this experience, the summa irkum sugam that Swamiji talks about, is indescribable, that experience. You have to experience it. There's no words to describe it. There's no vocabulary that is, universal enough to explain that experience. So for example, if I taste sweet, I can explain what that sweetness is, to some extent what that sugar or honey. In that same way, you see that this vibration, there is no words to describe it. It's a blissful experience that he's talking about. He says that sound indicates danger. So this vibration tells you that there is, danger ahead of you. There is a sense of, we call it insight. We call it intuition. Whenever we say intuition, it's into your own vision that's emanating from within yourself. So, sometimes you sense, okay, something is not right. And that inner sound, the inner vibration, inner voice tells you this. Most people don't listen to it. This is why they get themselves into trouble. So that inner sound, the inner vibration, you are anchoring a particular thought and you're deciphering the thought to see what all the outcomes would be if you action it. And you work out all the possibilities and you see that, you know that if you take this path, this is the outcomes, right? The same thing with sufferings. You're able to understand why there are sufferings, why there are challenges, and what you need to do. And the same thing with pleasure too. Prior to all this, a sense of serenity and quietude that one needs to really harness to be able to understand danger, sufferings, and pleasure. That's what Swamiji says, it precedes everything. This divine vibration, the Unarvu, precedes every other vibration. It is the vibration, the base zero vibration, which is, transcendental to this material vibrations. So he says that this vibration, which precedes everything, and he says that this is core to everything. And in this material world, nothing is static, nothing is fixed. Everything moves, everything that is, changes. Change is the only constant, right? Anything in this material world that, as long as it's matter and energy, there is change. And what the change is taking place on a background which is changeless. The background is what, this unlettered word. Sometimes people call it consciousness and a different name. He says that substratum, is the cause of, that enables all the changes that is happening. You see, nothing without sound. He says nothing moves without this vibration. Life, planets, sun, stars, all the energy will not move if you do not have that vibration. That's what, Nikola Tesla says, that the entire universe is vibration, and we are part of that vibration. So, in part of this meditational process is to go back to the base vibration. We have a lot of vibrations, because our thoughts are, experiencing many things, and different experiences gives you different vibrations. So when you quieten down this material experiences, you see that you slowly go back to the base experience, which is the quietude or that unlettered sound. Right? So Swamiji, then the characterization of sound is pulsation, causes vibration. So that, the pulses that part and parcel of this universe that is emanating from. So the big I or the primordial in its universal form, when it's, translates that into our four-dimensional universe, it creates, pulsation that causes vibration. Vibration causes waves. We have electromagnetic waves. We have, different types of radiation. And all these waves, even our body, to some extent, is wave, right? When you go to the doctor and you see your heart, through ultrasound or CAT scan and so on, what they're picking up is the waves of the heart and the kidneys and all those things. And they'll say, what a normal person, this is what the reading should be. If it's beyond this reading, then something is amiss. Something is that you need to look at it very carefully. So everything in this universe, as waves, the waves comes from the vibrations and pulsations, and the waves cause sound. It's got different frequencies, right? And that different frequency leads to different characterization of the experience in this material world. So even forms exist and cease to exist due to sound. So when conception takes place, when both the mother and the father contributes to this egg, and there is a vibration. When fertilization there's another vibration. When there's a fuse, when both gets fused, you see that it unleashes the process of meiosis and mitosis, where cells starts replicating a different type of vibration, and slowly the vibration starts creating hands and legs and everything else, and the doctor starts picking up through ultrasound the heartbeat and everything else, and eventually you see that the child is born and the child carries a different vibration, and and slowly has his own personality. So So, and the same thing also happens that when the growth period, there is a particular vibration in the, the youth, as you grow older, the vibration becomes, different. So, and ultimately when death occurs, there's also a vibration that takes place when the life force is separated from the body goes through a different vibration immediately. The vibration of disintegration takes place. And when the disintegration takes place, this is when the body starts disintegrating, and that vibration attracts flies and a whole range of things that come to dissolve the body. So we see this entire play or the dance is all because of the different frequency and different vibrations that exist in all of us. In that same way, how we experience also depends on the vibration that we emanate through the different thoughts and different experiences. If our vibration is inspirational, lofty, universal, you see that our life also turns out that same way. If our vibration is more limited, more muted, more kind of shallow, you see that our experience also becomes that. So here Swamiji gives a very scientific perspective, but has got a lot of spiritual meaning. So I spoke about this link. I want to then come back to this, how all this comes together, the link between I, energy, and thought. So here Swamiji spoke about the sound is the pulsation of, and the outcome is actually your energy and sound. So energy or sound is a pulsation of I, and thought is diffusion of I. And so it seems that everything originates from the I. That Swamiji links principle 1 and principle 2. But now, what's the relationship between principle 2 and principle 3? So we know the relationship between principle 1, thought, where thought is a diffusion of I, and sound is a pulsation. And what's the interlink between the two? And this is something very important, that we see that what our thoughts are depends very much on the energy that we generate and we create, right? So if our energy is very much focused on the material experiences, everything in this material world generates energy. And if our mind is caught up and absorbed in that material energy, the thought also becomes more material. So if our vibration, is so caught up with money and, pleasures and all these limited forms of experiences and vibrations, you see that the thought also becomes very limited and very shallow. So Swamiji says, how do I get to that, that inner vibration or energy that is more encompassing and more universal, right? It comes from that I, but somehow, the type of vibration that we interact with is very limited. So our thoughts become very limited, right? So we see that Swamiji's meditation method focus, how do we, instead of being focused on that vibration outside, slowly you anchor it with the Unarvu through the 3 stages of initiation. And the mind attains a sense of quietude and serenity, that all your neural pathway is now, relieved from all the traffic jams and frivolous thoughts and unnecessary thoughts and limited thoughts. And this is beautifully spoken about in some of the scriptures, where the master says to the disciple complains, Guru, I cannot get this universal thought of my mind. My thought is haunting me, and I've got demons that are haunting me. So the Guru says, what you are experiencing is Karpanya dosha. Karpanya dosha means a shrunken mind. That means the kind of energy that you are absorbing are very limited. And hence that is powering limited thoughts and shallow thoughts. So people like Mahan says, okay, now slowly let's decouple from the material world and focus more on the inner realm that is non-material. It is more spiritual, universal, transcendental, And as you become more and more focused, as you become more and more absorbed, the mind absorbs this universal sound and vibration and energy, you see that the thoughts also start becoming more lofty, expansive, universal. So there's a beautiful link between, transitioning from the limited, the mind absorbing the limited source of energy to a much more transcendental. And you see that the thought becomes more and more universal. So what was a kind of a very shallow and lacked the depth, now through this focus and meditation, your neural pathway becomes more deeper, more broader, and more and because it's more deeper and broader, it can carry more bandwidth of information. You become, your brain has better neuroplasticity, which is ability to think different things in a complex way, understand very subtle things. So your thought becomes more richer, more universal, and more deeper. So this link is very important, though both comes from the same, but because people's conditioning, the kind of energy that they absorb is very limited. So this is where the interactions that you have with the material world needs to be very, very careful. If you are caught up in toxic relationships, if you are caught up in things that are not, enriching and enlightening and inspiring, you see that the thoughts also start, emanating the same way. So assuming that you do what Mahan and other great saints say, look, take time to harness the inner energy, the inner resources in you. And they're saying, go in and unlock the inner resources. You're talking about that spiritual, divine vibration that is emanating in all of us, that is pulsating from that big eye. That is the base of all other vibrations. So when you do that, when the thought becomes more lofty, this is something very interesting happens, that the mind becomes, you generate beautiful thoughts, joyful thoughts, thoughts that don't haunt you, anger, hatred, jealousy. Yesterday we celebrated Thaipusam. I spoke about the 3 demons and how through meditation and through this, when we say energy is Shakti, that Kundalini Shakti, we unlock it through this meditational process, and we neutralize all the other limited material thoughts. And now the neural pathway is free from all those things. You become more calmer, more cool. It leads to experiences that are experiencing more subtle vibrations, more subtle things that, you missed out. So your mind, which has become very gross because of that material limited experience, now become more refined, more deeper, and it's able to understand very, very subtle vibrations that most people miss out. You capture the nuances of life in a better way. So we see that, through the practice of meditation, our thought becomes more lofty and deeper. And as that becomes, we power our energy better, we channel our energy in a better way. And you see that, our vibration becomes more greater and our thoughts become greater. And that feedback loop continuously takes place. And we saw that also in some of the other Advaitic teaching and Dvaitva teachings of bhakti leads to jnana, jnana leads to more bhakti. We saw that discussion when we covered that Dvaitva and Advaitva. So we see that through this meditational process, we're able to link principle 2 and principle 3. And something really important, as you continuously meditate, you see that our inner vibration starts emanating in every facet of our thoughts. And our thoughts power back, it kind of removes all the frivolous and transitory thoughts, focus on more enriching and deeper thoughts. And that links become very strong between the inner, force and our thoughts. That strong links have now connected. So if you can see a triangle there, that takes place. And this continues. As this continues, you see that this feedback loop, which is from I to the thought and energy, Now that you understand through this deep thought, deep vibration, more quietude, you understand that all this comes from the big I. In the earlier part, you did not understand where this came from. You start getting glimpses of this big I, or this divine experiences of that, the experiencer, right? And this is where sometimes people say, Guru, I can't experience God, or can't experience, because you are not doing this, right? As you start doing this, you see that your mind becomes more clear, more universal, more, and slowly, that links over many, many years becomes stronger and stronger. And you start experiencing you get glimpses of that divinity that is powering all this from within. And what's really interesting then is that, that feedback loop, between, you've experienced the powerful force in you that generates that thought. You understand now that your thought is more lofty and deeper. You understand that big I that powers you even further in generating more universal, and that loop continuously. And you see that loop generates, and also reinforces this power within you, that universal thought and that imprint of that big I. Ultimately, you see that the big I, the thought and energy becomes one. This is the convergence that takes place in this. So they reinforce one another, and you see that, that you don't give thoughts to frivolous thoughts, and you see that everything anchors from within ourselves, that vibration, the inner vibration in all of us. So this is what Swamiji talks about. So here, Swamiji then goes on to explain that if in the case, ultimately you see that the I, the unarvu, the thought becomes one. This is the oneness. So your thought becomes that universal identity. The force becomes that universal force, that you see that universal vibration in everything that you do, in every experience, in every person, in everything in this universe. You don't see differences. The oneness starts taking place. The glimpses of that divinity and enlightenment takes place. And what this is that something very interesting that happens now that you understand, you have better understanding of this relationship. You understand very subtle things that you missed out in a gross mind and gross intellect. And here now you are in that universal state, the liberated state, the free state. You become transcendental. And Swamiji beautifully captures this. This wisdom jnana has no rules. It's transcendental to all the material rules. Even time, for an ordinary person, time rules them. For the wise one, they become transcendental to these rules. For the ordinary person, the karmic laws impact them, the cause and effect. But the wise one, they become transcendental to this, right? And you also see that Swamiji speaks about, that I have left birth and death, and peravitain, vitavitain, all these things he starts saying. See, all these rules and regulation and laws that governs this material universe, you become transcendental to this, because your mind is no more focused on the materiality. The mind focuses on the spirituality. The spirit is supra matter, supra energy. It's transcendental to all the rules that governs this material universe. The body goes through this, but your spirit, your mind that is inspired by this, divine spiritual substratum, which somebody calls the big I, now becomes transcendental. So he says that the wisdom jnana without rules, without character and morality. What does that mean? For a human being, you have personalities, different personalities, right? Now there is no material personality. It is a universal identity. It is infinite potential and possibilities, right? Morality is for ordinary human beings, what's right and wrong, good and bad. But at that higher level, there is no such thing as good and bad. Everything is samatva. There is no sukha and dukkha. So he says that this you become transcendental to rules, what is right and wrong. Yes, for ordinary person is that. This is why you see that Mahans and all, when people, there is no saint and sinner, they are all treated as one. They know that, the saint has got conditioning, and the sinner also has a different type of conditioning, because of, family background and all those things. They have taken a life which unillumined. So they become transcendental to this. So he says that when you really understand this link between thought, energy, and I, and that reinforce one another, the wisdom knowledge gives you the transcendentality towards rules, regulation, laws, character, conduct, codes of conduct. So he says that it is somewhat like in a house where there is no locks or bolt for its door. What does it say? Many people lock the homes and lock all this. Why? Because they don't want other people to come and steal, and all the negativity, the negative things so people are scared. They lock the doors, they have bolt, they have security systems, and so on. Right? Here he says that a wise one is somewhat like the doors are open. Anybody can come. Anybody can take whatever they want, right? After all, if they're going to take, it's only the wisdom knowledge, right? And so you live he says that you live in a world where, you are not worried about, losing anything. There's nothing to lose because you came with nothing. You have everything with you, right? And this is where there's a beautiful story that I want to narrate here, which is really important, where there was this saint that there were 7 saints that are walking past this jungle, somewhat like the jungle behind me, right? And this dacoit, stops everybody and robs them from all their valuables. And people used to run away, and, so when the 7 saints were passing through this forest, this dacoit stopped them and said, I want to steal, I want to take whatever you have. And the saints were so happy. He says, we are looking for people who can steal things from us. The only thing we have is wisdom, knowledge. When we say that, most people will run away. All we have is this knowledge, these books. If you want, we're happy that you steal it. Unfortunately, most people don't want it. They want material things. So this story is a very important story because this saints, this dacoit got very surprised. Everybody runs away, but these people don't run away. So what is this treasure that they have? And they reveal this treasure to him of this wisdom knowledge, and he becomes more inquisitive. Say, how can this knowledge give wealth? And they slowly teach him, and he gets absorbed, and he starts imbibing those wisdom knowledge. And ultimately, from being a robber, he became a great saint and a great, sage. And he's none other than Valmiki Maharishi, who essentially wrote, great books of Sri Rama. So here, Swamiji, in the same light, is saying that the enlightened ones are transcendental to, the material rules, regulation, and so on. And when you're not caught up by this, you live in the best possible way. Can you imagine? You are not afraid of people coming and stealing things. You leave your house open. You don't have to be worried about anything. That beautiful feeling of, non-detached, and, you are neither attached nor detached from everything. And this is the beautiful experience that Swamiji describes, that the interlink between the I, the thought, and the reinforcing and getting the universal identity that gives you the transcendentality. So this is what Swamiji speaks about in that sound, how this inner vibration, if you learn to observe it through introspection, contemplation, reflection, and meditation, you see that the inner sound comes from the divine substratum, which Mahan calls, the big I, or the primordial. Others call different names, others call it God. So you see the reinforcement that gives us a much more richer understanding of the symphony, the divine symphony in all of us, and how to translate that symphony and compose that symphony into every facet of our material life, so that everything that we do, whether as a child, as a parent, as a professional, as a householder, resonates. The roles may be different, but the symphony is same. The symphony percolates in every facet of our lives to give you excellence, sarvadakshina. So when that excellence vibration percolates in a student, the student becomes an excellent student. When it percolates in a parent, the parent becomes excellent, universal. When it percolates into a spouse or children and family and professional, they all do really well. As a teacher, as a guru, and you see that all you have is that roles may be different. The force is the same. The force creates that torch that gives you that universal identity while still in that limited body that we are in. So as Mahan, another great saint, says, though the body is limited, the spirit, we are anointed with a spirit that is unlimited. Though the body is finite, that inner vibration gives us that infiniteness. Though the body is perishable, the vibration makes us realize that the substratum in us is imperishable. So with that, I stop. This is the divine vibration that Mahan talks about, this unarva that we all should be focusing on. And if we are able, if our mind is able to resonate in that divine vibration, our life, our thought, our experiences all will be divine. Sandosham.